152. The law is thereby present in a twofold manner, once, as law in which the differences are expressed as independent moments, and also in the form of a simple withdrawal into itself, which again can be called force, but in the sense not of a force that is driven back into itself, but force as such, or the notion of force, an abstraction which absorbs the differences themselves of what attracts and what is attracted. In this sense, simple electricity, for instance, is force, but the expression of difference falls within the law. This difference is positive and negative electricity. In the case of the motion of falling, force is a simple factor, gravity, whose law is that the magnitudes of the different moments of the motion, the time elapsed and the space traversed, are related to one another as root and square. Electricity itself is not difference per se, or is not in its essence the dual essence of positive and negative electricity. Hence, it is usually said that it has the law of this mode of being, and 2, that it has the property of expressing itself in this way. It is true that the property is the essential and sole property of the force, or that it belongs to it necessarily, but necessity here is an empty word. Force must, just because it must, duplicate itself in this way. Of course, given positive electricity, negative 2 is given in principle, for the positive is only as related to a negative, or the positive is in its own self the difference from itself, and similarly with the negative. But that electricity as such should divide itself in this way is not in itself a necessity. Electricity as simple force is indifferent to its law, to be positive and negative, and if we call the former its notion but the latter its being, then its notion is indifferent to its being. It merely has this property, which just means that this property is not in itself necessarily to it. This indifference is given another form when it is said that to be positive and negative belongs to the definition of electricity, and that this is simply its notion and essence. In that case, its being would simply mean its actual existence. But that definition does not contain the necessity of its existence. It exists, either because we find it, that is, its existence is not necessary at all, or else it exists through, or by means of, other forces, that is, its necessity is an external necessity. But in basing this necessity on the determinateness of being through another, we relapse again into the plurality of specific laws, which we have just left behind in order to consider law as law. It is only with law as law that we are to compare its notion as notion, or its necessity, but in all these forms, necessity has shown itself to be only an empty word.